Good morning, everyone. This is the February 3rd IPython Jupyter Dev meeting, and we're going to start the agenda with Fabian Pedregosa of Scikit-learn fame, and now with a new gallery.
Yeah, well, that was just a side project I've been doing for the last month, and that's it. I mean, there's not much for me to say. I just wanted a place to see what's going on, like discover new notebooks, and so I made that website. And that's it. There's not anything. I mean, it's very, very simple. The only thing that was a bit of an effort was the screenshot thing to make it work decently.
Did you make the screenshots by hand, or?
No, they're automated.
Okay.
So
and how do you find an optimal position?
Yeah, that's that took me some work.
Okay.
Because half of them at the beginning were blank because some people tend to do them very long. So at the end, I just center the thing. I make a big screenshot, and then I put a frame around the center, and that seems to work well for most of them. And that's it. And then I'm happy to collaborate with you in whatever I can to see if.
Yeah. So I'm sorry I never got to back to you on that email. It's been busy as we were commiserating with this grant.
But, yeah, I know that.
But we know that having a manually curated directory is completely unsustainable. We're fully aware of that fact. Nobody deludes themselves otherwise. The reason why we've had that manually curated directory is because we've never had the bandwidth to do what you just did. Our available bandwidth for NBViewer went into NBViewer itself. And we still needed to keep track at least of a few interesting links, mostly because it's useful for people.
Of course.
And the one thing that is still useful in a manually curated directory is, or the two things are, one is the categorical structure, which if you're looking for a specific topic, it's easy, but obviously it goes out of date. And the second one is a certain kind of element of human editorial judgment, if you will, that people exercise judgment in saying, is this worth putting in there or not? I don't know. Are you scraping automatically, or are you still deciding whether a specific link gets added or not?
No, I'm scraping automatically. Yeah. My idea is to have some sort of filter based on views, so that when you start the web page, you only see the most important ones. Or right now, it's very basic. It's just the number of views. I suppose a better thing would be like trending or most seen in the last month, something like that.
And it would be nice to start creating categorical indices, but based on the content itself, rather, and search and tags, rather than kind of a manual editorial decision, which doesn't scale.
Definitely, yeah.
So basically, I think we're all in agreement. It's just a matter of finding the bandwidth to try to merge in as much as possible what you're doing with what we had, and eventually we'd love to move to something like what you're doing, and couple that better with NBViewer. There's things that we can do in the back end in terms of indexing, in terms of searching. So it would be.
Yeah, I mean, you have the global views would be very interesting to use those at some point, not right now.
What do you mean by global views?
I mean, you know which are the notebooks that are most viewed.
Yeah. Yes. I just didn't understand what you mean.
Because you can access the NBViewer server. We have the logs of that.
Yep.
We have the statistics of that.
So what do other people think? And by the way, Matthias is not here because I think he's in a plane. But he just left France, but he'll be here in Berkeley tomorrow.
Okay.
And,
he told me, I think.
And he's going to be here full time, and so there will be some bandwidth for these topics, and so we'd love to engage with you.
Perfect.
Other thoughts, anyone?
Yeah, it looks really good. The one, so you have currently sort by date and sort by number of views.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea about like how to combine those and have some kind of like
popularity.
Popularity.
I would really like to have something like trending or most viewed last week. No, I have not. I mean, I wanted something quick and dirty just as a proof of concept.
Yeah.
And now I guess I will iterate on this and try to find a good way to present it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, I think, I mean, minor logistic things, if we want to put this thing at, like, gallery.nvview or whatever, or integrate it into NVViewer itself. I think separating the gallery from NVViewer might actually be a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's logistical stuff we can
agree.
About.
So, Brian, any thoughts?
No, I mean, I just agree with everything.
and yeah, because we have. So one thing we can do is hook this up to the NVViewer index that we are building but not using for anything. It's specifically.
Yeah, for example, you could post the statistics of in an open data kind of way, you know. So, for example, people like me or building apps could use that.
Yeah, it's specifically to do things like this, but we just haven't.
Yeah.
We just haven't. We started collecting the information, but we haven't started.
Of course.
Doing it.
Yeah.
There's a catch for you to keep in mind, Fabian, in all of this. This is part of the reason why we haven't exposed these statistics, and it's a privacy catch.
Yeah, I do understand that. Yeah.
People, even though NVViewer only can render public notebooks, we still don't want to completely expose immediately what is being shared all the time, because people effectively use it as a may use it as a semi-private thing, in the sense that they can share a secret link, a UUID style link, just with their colleague, and so it's a link which is technically public because it's visible on the internet, but it's a secret URL that is maybe unauthenticated, but otherwise not easy to find, and we don't want to automatically kind of basically broadcast that without people's consent. And so we don't want to. We've been looking at some of the logs just to see what people are sharing, but we don't want to immediately expose that, like put it on the front page. So we need to find a mechanism for how to give people an easy way to control that or understand that, and we haven't completely thought through how that would work. So it's just something for you to keep in mind.
Yeah, I do understand that, and I have thought about that. Yeah.
Okay.
I think maybe in the future you could have something that you can click that says I allow NVViewer to use this for statistics or something like that.
Exactly. So.
But yeah, I understand that right now you cannot.
We find a little bit of privacy controls, even on a public service. I think we want to be sensitive to that.
Yeah.
Yep.
But in the next few weeks, once Matthias has a chance to land, maybe we can loop and we get our heads out of the combined. We're now hit by a double whammy. Brian and I are neck deep in a grant nightmare, while these guys are trying to get 3.0 out the door. And so we're kind of at negative bandwidth right now.
Yeah, but I'm not at all in a hurry. This is a long-term thing. I'm also graduating in a couple of weeks, and this is my side project.
But we're delighted to work with you.
Latency.
Let's wait for 3.0 to be out, for these grants to be submitted, and for Matthias to be here. And in a couple of weeks, we'll loop back into this.
Perfect.
And you're welcome to hang out in the rest of the meeting, by the way. I mean, it's fully public, as you know, but you don't have to.
I will stay here, not say much.
Okay. Cool. Thanks, man.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Wait, does it sound like my mouth is full of bees still, or?
No, it's okay. There's a little bit of fuzz, but it's not too bad.
Okay, cool. I was just going to say, so for the Quantopian research thing, we just built a UI around sharing that basically on individual. So the reason I bring this up is you guys were talking about, like, how do you let people mark that, like, they want something to be indexed in this way? So what we've done for that is when you mouse over a cell, there's a little button that shows up on the right that's a share button. and if you hit that, then it pulls out like a separate UI that then you can basically choose like a mini screenshot that's your preview essentially, and then that gets, if you press another button there, then it gets uploaded and it makes it shareable on that. That might be an interesting model for you guys to think about.
Yeah. So it's done at the per cell level.
So the whole notebook is shared, but when you say share a cell, that cell's used to generate a preview, so that when then in our forums the notebook gets rendered, initially you see a preview that's based either on the input or the output, depending on if the output type's an image, then we assume that you probably wanted to share the image as like your sexy thing to bring people in. But then in that rendering, there's like a way that you can drill down back to the NB converted notebook.
And Scott, quick question: do you store in the notebook itself that information about what was shared, what cell? Do you tag the metadata?
Yeah. So the cell that was shared, we tag as like the showcase cell, or I forget exactly what we call it, and we use that on our forum rendering stuff to actually display that preview. But then we also store just the NB converted HTML to let people sort of drill back down into it.
Cool. Yeah, that's exactly what we've been talking about a couple months ago, maybe, when looking at how to make the Twitter previews of notebooks, of NB viewer notebooks, to be a little bit more informative.
Yeah, right
now they're kind of a generic NB viewer title and an IPython logo.
Yeah, so, right now we're sort of optimizing for, we haven't opened up the sharing stuff to non-employees because we've really only optimized the view for like a couple specific use cases. So like we know if you have images of a certain size, it's going to look good, and we set those as the defaults, but we haven't opened it up to everyone specifically because we don't know how to generically detect how to make it. We've talked about maybe like essentially like making a widget or something like that where it would render your output in a useful format, like that's specifically designed for the sharing stuff. But that may be a
well, good. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that basically all of these things together will be good to work on over the next few months. The gallery, sharing, that they're all kind of pieces of the same puzzle.
Okay. Screencasts? Thomas?
Yeah, so I was contacted by Megan Blanchett from O'Reilly saying that they've acquired, I can't remember what the name of the company was, but a company that makes screencasts about computery things, and they're interested in doing some IPython related material, among other things. And I said I'd let the core team know to see if anyone was interested. I asked her how long, and she said they're looking at kind of 3 to 6 hour video.
So like full tutorials type things.
Yeah. I don't know if that's 3 to 6 hours in a single kind of one huge video, or if that's like broken up into smaller pieces.
Yeah, Brian and I had also been contacted by them, and we'd had a conversation with them. They're kind of sorting out their back-end infrastructure with some of this, and probably in the spring that they'll be ready for this. And it would be great basically to see who in the team has the bandwidth and wants to work on this. I'm pretty sure I will not be one of those people.
Yeah.
Not in the next month.
yeah, for sure. Well, in my case, maybe even a little longer, unfortunately. But it would be wonderful if several of you guys got together and we put together some really good materials that were coherent and easily reusable. Brian was particularly interested in kind of thinking through a well-structured modular setup so that they're easy to use in smaller chunks.
And she also said that they'd be interested in a book about IPython, which they would like to be written as notebooks and then converted into a book form.
Yeah, someone needs time to write a book.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that that our time is best spent writing a book. I've said no. I mean, Megan got tired of asking me because for years I've said no, and same with Brian. And the thing is, a book is a very time-consuming thing to do, and I'm just not sure we have the bandwidth. And few people on planet Earth are like Wes McKinney, who can write pandas and write a book about pandas at the same. But and I'm not willing to work 190 hours a week.
The rest of us need sleep.
Yeah. I can't do that. I simply can't.
Yeah, I was talking to Katie Huff and Anthony Skopats have a book coming out.
Yeah.
Katie was saying that from the initial research for that, it's probably taken her 5 years to get to an actual book.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's writing writing a crappy book is really easy, right? And so if once you get down that road, you're invested, you're committed, you have a pile of stuff, and if you just let it be like that, it's going to be crappy quality. But the investment to take that into something that's very high quality is huge.
The rest of the agenda, I've just stuck in a few PRs that I thought might benefit from discussion. If people know of other things that they'd like to discuss, please do add them. So the kernel test tool, I haven't actually really looked at the PR, but it sounds like something that we've been saying we ought to write for a while, which is a module that you can point at a kernel of your choice, and it will go and test that that kernel behaves correctly with the message spec.
Yeah, it's taking our message spec tests and making them reusable for kernels other than ours, which
wonderful.
Which I was supposed to do for 2.0, but didn't.
My only concern is this a little late to be merging right now? And number two, should this be a tiny standalone tool instead of merged in? I'm not advocating, I'm just asking.
I mean, mainly what this does is take the tests that we have, and I haven't looked at how you actually run it with another. Oh, it's in testing. Yeah, mainly I haven't. I think that the principle of it is definitely good, and since it's only a testing change, I don't have that much of a problem with doing it for 3.0. But if I'm not quite sure what the public API for running a bit of tests against another kernel should be, and I'm not sure that the one here is. And
it may take a bit of working out the details, so I might punt until post 3.0.
This would be a small utility, in fact. So I don't think.
Well, it's either a small utility or it's it may even be a bit of code that we just tell people to copy into their own projects.
Yeah, I would prefer to defer this potentially to 3.1. Sure. It's something that we could slip into a bug fix release, since it doesn't really touch the main APIs. And it gives us a chance to think, should it be just a standalone utility? Is it basically an example that as you said, that can be made available for people to? But I don't feel, I really want to start not putting more code in.
Yeah, I think aiming for 3.1 and just letting the review, not figuring out how to make this reusable.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great idea, and I'm happy to see it go in, but I don't think it needs to go in right now.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you. Brian, thoughts?
Brian's real quiet.
Just agree.
Okay.
He's in agreeing.
He's speaking with thumbs.
Depend on Terminator.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you do pip install IPython square brackets notebook on a Unixy machine, should it bring in Terminator, so you have terminals working? It's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I mean, on the one hand, it's it's easy. Like there's no complexity around that dependency, at least on Unix machines.
Yeah.
On the other hand, like we don't expect most of the people we don't expect most of the times when it is being installed that people will actually want to use terminals in the web interface.
Scott, are you still there?
Yep.
Scott, I have to say, though, that I don't understand your comments, because IPython is one exclamation character away from the shell. It has
so in the standard configuration it is. We do a bunch of interesting static analysis-based sandboxing on the Python interpreter.
Okay.
So anything that's going through the Python kernel for us is
it's sanitized.
Sanitized and doesn't especially resemble what you actually typed in ultimately. Whereas the terminal. But Kyle rightly pointed out that if I can have a security hole opened up because you guys change one of your package setups, then that's a bug for me, not a bug for you.
Yeah.
So the only worry that I would have is that they're I guess, yeah, I don't even take that back. I think it's fine either way.
Yeah, I guess it's just a question of how do we treat these kind of optional dependencies?
Right. The worry that I would have entirely selfishly is that once it's accepted there, then you get to the point where you assume that it's there.
Well, we can't do that because it can't work on Windows.
Gotcha.
I was going to ask what happens. That was my next question. What happens on Windows if we do make it full? Is there still logic in there that skips it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we would only add it on Unix platforms.
That actually reminds me. I need to do it in two places because the wheel dependencies are computed separately, or the wheel dependencies that are platform dependent are computed separately.
This makes me think maybe we should.
I mean, we already do it for things like readline and mock. All our conditional dependencies, you can't, in setup.py, you can't express conditional dependencies in the requirements.txt style.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to, we depend on
one place.
We depend on mock on Python too. So we have to put it in two places, and we already have. A few, so it's not.
It's very simple. It's just adding 2 lines instead of 1.
Yeah.
I think I think I'm in favor of adding it from the perspective of anytime we build MVPs, I think it's good to get it in front of as many people as possible just to get feedback. And
It is weird if we don't put it in that we have this feature, but then it doesn't show up by default. And because the mode in which it doesn't show up is a little weird, because it's like, well, terminals, but I can't do one. Yeah, I'm kind of leaning.
Yeah, we left it out as a dependency when I initially designed it. So like if you didn't have Terminado, then terminals just wouldn't show up in the interface at all. There was no indication that was a possibility. Now we've changed the UI so that when Terminado isn't there, there's a, terminals is still there, and it just says terminals are unavailable.
Yeah, and that's kind of a weird thing. Like you see they're unavailable. What does that mean? The normal user may not know why that's the case. Right, and they may not understand, and they're not going to know, what do I have to do to make them available?
Yeah, and
we should probably put that message, at least the one in the box for the list of terminals, should probably say something like, terminals are unavailable. To make them available, use pip install terminado, or terminals are unavailable, they don't work on Windows.
But
terminals are unavailable, they were explicitly disabled in config.
Here's the email address of the Microsoft feature request page.
Yes, with CC to Sharok.
The TTY support real terminals on Windows.
Yeah, absolutely. So no, I'm leaning towards adding it in.
I'll finish that up.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other reason is because it'll make Unix packagers like Linux distro packagers, probably it'll nudge it towards making it a real dependency, hence packaging Terminato, which I know they love that we keep rising the number of IPython dependencies. But hey, we're here to make them happy.
IPython 4, you know.
What's that?
They're going to love us for IPython 4.
Yeah.
Guys, we've got 8 new packages for you.
Yeah, no, let's keep those guys working. All right.
The select all checkbox stuff.
Yeah, I think that looks good. I mean,
Yes.
Let me look.
Yeah.
It's ready by my standards.
Well, speak for yourself.
that's why we have code review.
Based on the current, and I can do this with you in person today. It would be nice for me to take a break from the grant stuff. I think the names of the directories and notebooks could be nudged to the left a tad.
So not lined up with that little house icon?
No, still lined up with the house, but I mean,
move the whole thing.
But again, it's one of the subtle things that we should just play with interactively together. And looks good.
That vertical gap looks a little weird. But otherwise, great, Don. Thank you.
Yeah, this is going to really help the
absolutely.
The work.
I'm actually pissed that Google Docs removed checkboxes in their new UI because operating on multiple files, now you have to do the whole control thing dance, and it's a two-handed cord, which is annoying.
It's not discoverable.
No. You have to know. So somebody who doesn't know that control-click chords to do isolated selection has no way of learning it.
Well, and also on Google Drive, they've hidden the action button behind a drop-down. The state does not change when you select files. So you have no idea that selection even does anything.
That's terrible.
So you're saying, I heard there was a secret chord?
What's that?
I heard there was a secret chord.
Control click.
It was a humorous reference to a song.
Oh, I didn't. I'm sorry, I didn't know this.
Great success.
Yeah, very secret. But yeah, I have +1 from me on that PR modulo last tweaks.
Yeah. Do we? I agree. After people have used the checkbox UI a bit more, how are we feeling about the need to scroll just the list of items rather than the whole page?
The need to what? I'm sorry.
To scroll just the list of items. Right now, if you have a long list of items in the dashboard,
now I got it.
The buttons scroll off the screen when you're down at the bottom. And
putting the list in a div.
Exactly, and
probably a good idea. Especially on laptops, on 16.9 laptops.
Good idea, but tricky, I think, is...
I'm sorry?
Good idea, but non-trivial from what Vin was saying. This is a thing that comes up repeatedly, but is hard to do with HTML and CSS, is have something that fills like the remainder of the screen below whatever you've already got, and then scrolls within that.
If we have to live with it, that's fine. If it's gonna break,
I think that's where we were, because John had an implementation of it, and then Brian and John decided it's probably not a good idea to merge this right now. Is that right?
Fine.
Isn't that? Yeah.
The problem you run into is that you end up having to manage the page, the layout of the entire page carefully.
You're back to the scrolling battles of the notebook, right?
Well, it's not just that. It's the problem that the different tabs in the dashboard would all be managed in the same way.
Fine. MVP, live with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Yeah, if we figure it out, that can be the 3.1 thing.
Especially, also because if all of this may become moot in Phosphor, Phosphor may give us the div handling necessary for that, and if that's the case, wait. That way people have things to look forward to.
Yeah. I will say.
Pretty much getting everything in 3.0.
I will say, I greatly appreciate the fact that the delete button is now much more difficult. The physical size and distance away from the checking items, like there is no more deleting by accident.
The accidental delete is good.
Since that's always seemed a bit odd, since it requires clicking it and then clicking confirm in a dialog. It always seemed, even if the button was half the screen, it seems pretty hard to accidentally delete.
Where I've run into trouble is one, long lists.
Yeah.
And where in a wide screen, I've run into situations where my eyes will offset by one.
Oh, you're deleting the wrong thing.
And so I'm moving quickly, and so
Yeah.
And the trouble with confirmation dialogues is that if you feel like you know what you're doing,
you're pointless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
But I think it completely solves the accidental. Like if delete's not the action you wanted to take.
Yeah. And also,
I don't think that was an issue.
The checkbox is right next to the name, and so there's no misclicking.
Good.
Okay.
Hey, Min, what's this ZeroMQ thing?
So I don't.
This
is not. This
Can you
isn't.
give us a TLDR?
Yeah, it's nothing to worry about. It's the ZeroMQ doesn't basically, since the 3.0.
3.0 off ZeroMQ.
Yeah, there was a process of doing new stuff in backward incompatible ways in what would have been ZeroMQ 3.0, and that over a long time and lots of things basically resulted in the current state of ZeroMQ, which is never break anything. So all new stuff is done adjacent to old stuff.
Okay, so you think you don't have anything to worry about?
No. Were you just based on the... I pinged Peter about the new APIs just this morning just because it's not obvious. In C, where everything is wrapped in a message object, I think the change... And this is actually one of the changes that was in ZeroMQ 3.0 was there's this problem that multi-part messages have, like, there's content and there's routing information.
Yeah, that's in
the two are indistinguishable. And so ZeroMQ 3.0 actually introduced the notion of routing information. I can't remember what they were called. They were called like commands or something.
Yeah.
And
for the multi-part
message parts. And it was a different way to solve the same problem of separating routing information and multi-part content and content. But yeah, multi-part messages aren't going away.
But I would. So, have you read the blog post that he posted?
No, not yet. I read the first bit.
Well, granted, I read this half asleep at like 5:30 this morning, but some of the things he said in there, like my initial thought was, and part of it was, he was outlining how the different possible usages of multi-part messages, and then in a couple of cases proceeded to say no one ever uses that. And my thought was, wait,
we do.
Yeah, we use.
We're not nobody.
And so he basically asked, hey, can you let us know, like, how are you using multi-part messages? And
we use several of the bullets of what multi-part's for.
Yeah, and so even if there's no risk of this part of the API going away, it would probably make sense for us to participate because in terms of users, number of users using the ZeroMQ through our software, it's pretty high.
Yeah.
And in terms of breadth of impact of a breakage here, messing things up for a lot of people in many different places, and people who are not necessarily think of themselves as ZeroMQ engineers.
Yeah.
Right.
But then, and to be clear, there are zero plans for what we use to go away.
Okay.
There's just there's the first PR in this is basically adding a so there's the router socket that we use for a lot of stuff. There's an additional server socket now that functions basically the same as a router socket, but uses a different API to do routing than message parts, and that's the whole thing.
Can somebody put the post to the blog on?
It's on.
Is that is the blog post?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I'm reading. I thought there was another. That this was like the technical document, and that there was another blog post. Okay, yeah, no, that's the one I'm reading.
Just replace that with the real link.
Yeah, got it. I'll read the whole thing later.
Yeah, but it also, Peter's blog posts tend to be dramatic, but they don't necessarily reflect.
Okay. That's why I wanted to bring it up with you, because there's been other times in the past where you've basically told me, don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, don't worry about
Okay. It's not on the agenda, but I just wanted to ask you guys, ask everyone, kind of, where are we? How's the beta looking? Any feedback? Status?
We got a few new bug reports, mostly like UI things that we've since fixed, but it's going fine.
Mostly seems to have gone smoothly.
Yeah,
the trouble with betas going smoothly is you don't know if it's going smoothly because there aren't many problems or because not many people are testing it.
We did get a bug report about 15 minutes after I got the beta that was using the beta, so that was kind of nice. That's interesting.
Is the beta live on try.jupyter.org?
I don't know. We can check. I think that's...
Who's that? Oh, that's me. That's great.
That person pointing at me.
I don't remember. We can check and make sure what revision that is.
Are we gonna? What's the plan? Beta 2 in RC or just straight RC?
I don't know.
Give it a few more days. I think if it carries on kind of at the level of bugs that we've dealt with so far, I think I'd be happy going to an RC.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe at the end of next week or something.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that's
in that vicinity.
I guess I've been thinking a bit more about the documentation, blog, all of those questions, and if our fundraising efforts are successful, we could have significant amounts of help for technical documentation, hiring someone to do an actual real new website for us. But that's really, even if everything goes according to plan, we're, what do you think, for another 6 months away from that, moving forward in a meaningful way?
A website redesign could happen a little quicker, but no quicker than 4 months.
Yeah. So, and
the technical writing work, that's a longer haul.
And so, what I'm wondering is, what's our triage plan, and for the next few months? And there's a couple parts of this. One, some content that we have on our websites is just completely out of date. We don't have many website pages. Documentation is a whole separate question. I'm just talking about our IPython.org and Jupyter.org. And so I'm tempted to, for the time being, start removing stale content, put up a ghost blog that we can use for, to actually make announcements, basically. So funding announcements, release announcements, conferences, basically start to use the blog for all the dynamic stuff, and then keep static pages as simple as possible until we can do that refactor. I don't know, what any thoughts about this? Because right now, I think people will be very confused when they see the logo in the notebook and go to Jupyter.org and find that there's basically nothing there.
Yeah.
There's no description.
At the very least, we need to update the two home pages, the landing pages, so that they mention each other. If nothing else, a sentence in each that points to the other and that explains.
And part of it also is with this release, all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, Jupyter. Thomas was pointing that Jupyter at least says evolved from IPython, but the IPython website doesn't say anything about Jupyter.
Yeah. And also, we're going to start to get people who say, Jupyter, I'm an R user. How do I get going?
Yeah.
I mean, right now, that like our install page completely assumes Python only.
And that stuff, the information about, there's other kernels and whatnot, is buried in basically highly specialized information that only people who are kind of already in the know will know where to find. It's not that it doesn't exist, but it's buried pretty deep.
But I think there's two parts of it. One is just the content, authorship, and organization question, and then the other is just the basic technology hosting questions. And I mean, what we could. I think the blog would buy us a lot of flexibility to post content that is not an investment in an infrastructure we know we're going to start basically throw away soon.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me seems like a good avenue for us to do some new content that addresses what's going on right now.
I mean, the only issue is time, but in terms of how to do it quickly and off of things like notebooks that we're used to writing and authoring, Nicola, which is what Damien has been working on, or the Pelican plugins that people like Jake Vanderplas use, might make that easy, so we can just drop a notebook and hit make. That's one option. I don't know if what were you thinking of, like?
Well, part of this is I can't spin up a full set of coder students this summer.
Uh-huh.
Like I'm going to be hiring our software engineers still, and I just don't have the capacity to also hire the full-time staff here and also spin up students on the code side. And so my plan is to try to hire students on the other side of things. And maybe, I mean, I'm thinking of maybe trying to hire a student as a technical writer to start to work on the content of the website. And so part of it was thinking about, I mean, something like Ghost is nice because it's not a GitHub workflow. We can have admin people adding content to it. It's you just type text.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the idea of I mean, it's a way of lowering the barrier to contribution.
Mm-hmm.
There is
that doesn't solve the problem of the two landing pages.
No, that's a separate. I mean.
Yeah, I think having the paragraph that we've said out loud a whole bunch of times and maybe written once or twice. I wrote a version of it in the release notes of, the language agnostic bits of IPython are moving under a new umbrella, etc. I think we can put a version of that paragraph as our Band-Aid on both front pages. Maybe slightly different, maybe not, maybe exactly the same.
I was talking to someone at the Cal Poly Hackathon about this. One of the people on the team of IPython. It's it's a well-known startup that's here in San Luis Obispo, and this person said, and this is they do fantastic UI UX work there. They're all technical, and they said, Yeah, for stuff like this, we actually use Squarespace.
They use what?
Squarespace.
Really? Wow.
I don't know. It's.
But okay, Min is right. It may not be actually that much work to just change for the time being, right? Until we have a full website redesign. If we simply add a paragraph to the Jupyter.org landing page with just a summary and maybe a couple of links that here are the kernels that the project supports, and and we just link to those pages for now, that already will be a big improvement, because that already will at least tell people, like, what's going on. And then change the landing page of IPython.org to at least mention Jupyter, have a little logo, and have it link. That'll clarify in people's minds, and that is something that can be done in an hour. I mean, it really is adding a paragraph to each landing page, and with a few links. That's not hard to do. I mean, within the scope of the work to be done for the 3.0 release in the next couple of weeks, that's a couple of hours that can be put in.
No, and that, I mean, I have always thought that basically limping along with those static pages for now is the best, but with a blog. More, and the blog would allow us to do a lot more explaining.
Especially because relevant blog posts, then, I mean, not only can we have a link to the blog, but actually relevant blog posts can be linked to easily.
So I don't know.
Okay, so basically two small edits to each landing page, and then blog.jupyter.org. And honestly, for that, what I would do is pick the simplest tool that we can use right now, and we can always change it as long as it supports plain text or Markdown or plain HTML. We can always grab those posts and reconvert them with Pandoc into God knows what 6 months from now if we really want to. And I don't particularly care what technology goes into that blog, other than keep it simple for now.
Sure.
Are those kind of the action items then? Kind of two paragraph edits, one on each homepage, and a blog that is linked at both, and with a URL of blog.jupyter.
I mean, I would really prefer to have a non-GitHub based blog.
Well, yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Because that's the type of thing that, like, I can start to hire students to work on that April 1st. I mean, it's.
So, fix up.
That's April 2nd.
Yeah, no job offers on April 1st.
Actually, we're supposed to start the next grant cycle on April 1st.
Oh, Jesus.
Yes, we are. That's how it was submitted.
Okay.
That's actually how the paperwork was written. The irony of it did not escape.
Yeah, let's not give our program managers ideas here.
Oh, you guys are so funny. You thought you were getting money.
$1 billion.
You thought you were actually going to get money. You fell for it.
Okay. Is that everything everybody's got?
Blog.jupyter.org. Let's pick something very simple for now.
I may.
Maybe Ghost. Or whatever. Brian, that seems to be your preference right now?
Yeah, I mean, some other people mentioned it, and I looked at it, and it's really impressive. I mean, it's basically open source, self-hosted medium. Like it's really, really cool.
Yeah, if it's got post export, and then whatever.
No, it's still. I think it's still underneath the hood, Markdown files.
Yeah, sure.
We can confirm. I mean, I may talk to Kyle and look into seeing what it would take to do a Docker-based deployment of that.
Sure.
And if it's too complex, we can figure something else out. I mean, that's...
Okay. All right. I think we're wrapped up.
Signing off.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Internet.
So, Fernando, can we talk on the phone?
Yeah. Give me 5